I want to welcome everyone to this artist talk here at RAM Gallery. My name is Joakim Borda-Pedreira. I'm the director of the gallery. And this evening we're going to talk to a young artist who we are currently showing here now as part of our group exhibition entitled Boys Love. And the artist is sitting here, Helgi Arnarson, born in 1993, so quite young, in Iceland, on Iceland rather. But he came to Norway and he studied here, graduated last year, was it, from the Art Academy here in Oslo, at the jewelry or metal department as it's called. And the works that we are showing here in the gallery now are a series of brooches or sculptural brooches, artworks. I'm wearing one at this moment, but there are also wall objects that have a more sculptural presence in the gallery. And these brooches, this series of works, is entitled IRL Cruising, 0 meters away. I wanted to ask Helgi first a little bit to tell us a little bit about his background as an artist and also how he came to work with jewelry objects or metal objects.
So yeah, I've been in Norway for 8 years now. I studied 2 years in Kunstskolen in Bergen. Before, when I finished that, I got into the metal department and Kunst og Håndverk in KhiO, so the craft department. So you said the academy, so I'm very picky about that. Like technically I didn't graduate from the academy, I graduated from the craft department. And yeah, the whole point was I went to the metal department just to try new things, try new techniques and skills, and it seemed interesting. So, and I didn't realize that contemporary jewelry was a thing. I had no idea what it was before I started that program. And yeah, since I was there, I tried it out and tried a few things, and then wasn't even sure if I wanted to do a lot of jewelry, but I enjoyed learning the techniques and working with materials, and then for the final project, which is the brooches are part of it, it ended up being exploration of identity and of trying to figure out like what I would wear, and if I had to wear something, what I would like to wear.
And the brooches or the works, they're made of bronze, which, I mean, it's a very classical material almost. It's really like the sculpture material of art somehow. And at the same time, it's not so common, I think, in jewelry, is it? I mean, sculpture material is more known. What was your way into that, and how did you?
Bronze was like a practical and just a good material that connects it to okay. So the bodies themselves are doll bodies. So I went to different flea markets around the city and found as many as muscular dolls I could find. And so in order to cast something, then on a student budget it becomes pretty expensive, so I didn't want to do silver. And I tried doing some alloys with silver and copper, and those were really beautiful, but went very expensive very quickly because you lose a lot of the silver in the casting process. And I needed it to be patentable, so if the whole point is that at the end I patinated with poppers, so it had to have a copper alloy. If I would use silver, then it would just get dark or like tarnished, and in addition to being extremely expensive, it would not really look great. But but I love how copper alloys become very green and beautiful, and like they look more ancient than they are. so that's why I went with bronze, and it's yeah.
That's an interesting aspect because by making them in bronze and when they're patinated, they also look more like classical bodies, even though the bodies or the dolls that you use have nothing of the classical proportions to the male body.
They
are exaggerated, super muscular bodies, which are completely unnatural in a way. I think we should sort of also just tell everyone from the beginning to the end really what the works are, because some things you cannot see really on a distance. I mean, they're male bodies, yes, or doll bodies, but also some of them have inscribed texts. And you mentioned briefly the patination. I think we should also explain that a bit.
Okay. If you're not a gay man, then maybe you don't know what poppers is. Poppers is a drug that you inhale. Like, depends on who you ask if it's a drug or not. It's amyl nitrates, and which I think drops your blood pressure, so it makes you more relaxed. It makes it easier to be fucked. So it's very, very common in gay hookup culture. So it's very like if you meet somebody up for sex, then it's very common to just bring out the bottle. And I had done some test castings with bronze before, and I took a finished brooch that had a pin in it, put it in a jar, and I just poured some poppers on it and left it for, I don't know, a few days, a week. And I was really surprised when I came back to it and saw the brooch, and the pin itself, the steel pin, had corroded into nearly nothing. So like I picked it up and then the pin just broke and fell apart. But the color of the brooch itself was extremely beautiful. Like this very light, like you can see it there, a light green that you don't get from the chemicals that we were allowed to use at school, which was basically just vinegar and ammonia.
Now, it's an aspect that fascinates everyone that looks at these brooches, that they have a patina, a look that is so almost ancient, or the sort of look that very antique or high quality bronze objects could have. One that usually is acquired over a long time, but here you sort of discovered a quick fix in a way.
Yeah.
But in terms of, well, that's the material aspect of it, that it's poppers, it's just a chemical thing. But what about the sort of cultural aspect of it? What did you want to say with, I mean, why did you want to use something from, well, like a sex drug or a aphrodisiac?
Because I wanted to make the project very gay.
Yeah.
Like just from start to finish, I wanted to be very gay. Like the bodies themselves being exaggerated musculature. It's very like it's dolls meant for little kids, but they're extremely homoerotic. It's the writing that I put in some of the brooches is writing I took from Grindr and Scruff. Just directly copied it and tried to make it as interesting to me as possible. And then with the added layer of poppers, it becomes this. It becomes a visual that looks ancient but is modern and is the current state of the gay world, sort of thing.
So did you reflect on that part of it, that you're taking something that is normally rather hidden, I think, like cruising and I mean even within the gay community, it's something that is sort of hidden as well, and not everyone would even admit doing it.
Absolutely.
I mean, you have both types, but
yeah.
But I mean, it's something that I mean, most cruising happens at night or evening. It's something
In a park.
in public spaces, maybe the park, whatever. So and then you're sort of taking out this, and the same perhaps with Grindr is something that not everyone admits to to having a profile there.
I think it's funny actually. I did a tiny little segment with KhiO once because they were doing that reporting on that Grindr was selling users' data, including HIV statuses. So KhiO needed somebody, just anybody, to admit that they use Grindr and say that they're concerned about this. And I talked to the reporters, and they could not find anybody any Norwegian person or close to it here in Oslo that would go on the news with their face admitting that they use the app Grindr. So yeah, I think that maybe was like my naivety about this project was I wanted it to people wear it and maybe personalize it. Yeah, exactly. Like I made my own brooch, which just has actually the things I would write on my profile that I have on my profiles in general, like Megan Pratt or Top or whatever. And I didn't realize that nobody would want the brooch that way. So the brooches I've sold so far, they're all sculptural pieces in people's homes. They don't really want to wear it outside like I originally intended, but that's beautiful too.
I mean, do you think it's a particular Scandinavian thing that you have that sort of shame or there's or is it something general that?
No, I mean that's basically a dialogue in anytime we're talking about homosexuality or queerness in general, that talking about gay shame. And I feel like every single time there is a discussion of that, then it comes back to shame. And shame is what keeps you in the closet, and like that's why we have pride. Pride, the only way to counteract shame is pride.
But well, speaking of pride, I mean, there's still there's also, I mean, if you go to Pride here, it doesn't look like Pride does in some other countries. But I mean, here it's like the trade unions and everyone's very dressed, I have to say.
I went to a Pride Park wearing a jockstrap this year, and I was the only one.
Exactly. So that's why I was thinking if it's possible to connect this somehow to this Scandinavian idea of normalization, also in a way where there's a lot of focus on civic rights maybe and less focus on sexual liberties or you could say individual liberties.
When I sometimes I really love this project, sometimes I really don't. And when I don't like this project, then I kind of like think of it in very like minimal terms, like it's gay bodies, like whatever. But when I really love it, then I start thinking it more on the lines of like Carlos Alejandro Mota and his project of making sculptures that represent queer history in places, in museums where there is no queer history, because our history wasn't written down because of shame and because we were hiding. So that I sort of feel like it's making these sculpture pieces, that these antiques or the lost artifacts that are filling in these little niches of history that isn't there. And especially thinking of the AIDS epidemic, of how we lost a generation of, nearly 2 generations of mentors, of people that are supposed to be here and bring the shame, get rid of the shame, and all the fun sexual people, they died.
I think that's an interesting point, because I'm a bit older than you, and I remember when I was young in the 90s, it was clinically clean of any gayness in society. All you had left was a sort of AIDS panic. And then now we're in a situation where in popular culture I see a lot of series on the 70s and the early 80s and the almost how gay culture entered mainstream then in a way that it barely is doing today, in a sense. And you're thinking like, well, obviously that happened and then it disappeared, and how each generation somehow has to discover new. You know, it's not a continuation or a.
Yeah, exactly. Like there isn't there are queer like I grew up with some queer role models of like I could see Will and Grace. Like Will and Grace is extremely sanitized, but it was there, and like I appreciate that I could see Will and identify myself in him. But then it's the thing of losing that potential history. Of I remember just recently I watched an interview with Divine. It was like in the late 80s, early 90s interview with Divine from this San Francisco local TV station where they had local ads, and one of the local ads was this erotica shop, and it was just so bold. It was this guy with a huge bulge and just walking down the street and everybody was looking at his bulge, and it was just something very sweet and endearing but very sexual. And I just realized I've never seen this before. Never in my life have I seen something that's just like very queer, gaily sexual, open, honest, but and not ashamed. But and then realizing that like, okay, the people that would make that, they had like if they survived the epidemic, then they had to be more sanitized and have to present everything in a very like squeaky clean Will and Grace sort of way, like Modern Family, or like if they're gonna be gay and open, then they have to be completely asexual. I don't know if it made sense, but yeah.
No, but I understand your point, because I think that also, I mean, if you, again, as I remember it, this is very subjective, but as I remember it, there was this series called Queer as Folk in the late 90s, and that was the first time I saw, on television, gay people that were just sort of enjoying life, and it didn't end with everyone dying or some other tragedy somehow.
Yeah.
Because everything else, like my generation, the films that you would see, like, My Private Eye, all these things, they all ended like shit, They were nice films, but nobody had a happy ending.
Yeah, it was
Nobody
Philadelphia, or like just over and over and over again. It was like the crying gay people.
And also the scenes, you would never see sex scenes. You would never see. It was always just implied.
Or even if it were sex scenes, then it would be like dark and scary and like shameful. No, I love Queer as Folk doesn't really hold up anymore, but I love Russell T Davies. He made it, and I love the series that he made, especially recently, like It's a Sin. Like he's the same guy, and I love he's amazing.
So going back to your art pieces, I mean, they are clearly very much about gay culture, and I think also you, as I understand, also you are very active within sort of gay culture and gay. You don't separate that from neither your artwork nor your sort of public, private life. And is that something that you just did consciously, or is it something just because this is who you are, so you're doing it?
It is consciously of I feel freer here in Oslo than I do in Iceland. I feel like I become more closed off and shameful, I guess, in Iceland. I'm way less so than before, but I feel in order to find meaning in art or find meaning in what I do, I have to go for what I care about, and working against shame is something I really care about. So whether it is in art or volunteering for Hiv Norge or Chem Friendly or Pion or any of those organizations, or like fronting for the Fetish Club on the board for.
We are sitting now in a gallery where one exhibition has the work of Helgi, but also there are also other exhibitions here. And one exhibition is with another artist, Erika Stöckel, who and her exhibition is also about cultural shame somehow, but in her case it's the shame of sort of shame that is imposed on people with Sami background in Scandinavia, how they sort of subconsciously really distance themselves from their heritage and culture. And I'm thinking about that when I saw your works also, because of the text some of them have, like, you know, maybe they're prep or also they're sort of referring to things that also are very much part, I think, of the cultural shame here in Norway and Scandinavia in general, I guess, because I remember when I moved to Norway from the UK in 2009, we already had like a prep was available in the UK then, and they were, you know, it was sort of normalized, you could say. Whereas here there was a very moralistic debate, and I think, I mean, we are all in a way guilty of participating in that moralistic debate, because obviously some of the arguments are, why should we pay our tax, whatever. But trying to look at it a bit from the side now, from the retrospect, because now it is available here and so on. I think that maybe there's still a sort of shame about it, that you're not. It's something that.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if I should explain what PrEP is.
Yeah.
PrEP is pre-exposure prophylaxis. It's like works as the birth control pill, except for HIV. So if you take it once a day or by need, then you can effectively prevent the transmission of HIV. And so when PrEP came into the market, or just came into society, then there was a huge shame against people using it. Same shame that was used against women with when birth control became available. Of women were supposed to be would become sluts and have sex with everybody. And the same thing with PrEP was that people would stop wearing condoms or using condoms, and everybody would just have free sex and go wild, which is a lovely thing. And I wish, but I feel like that it is Scandinavian, Nordic countries. Not Scandinavian, I'm Nordic. The Nordic countries have an extra layer of societal shame, I think, because it's, I don't know why it is, but it is there. Maybe it's because it's smaller communities, or it's Lutheranism or Protestantism. I don't know where it came from. But
you know, this myth of the Scandinavian sinful countries with free sex, this is complete myth, you know, like we that are Latin origin, we sort of, people still believe that Scandinavia, women are always walking around with their breasts exposed and things like that. But it's also a myth, it's an idea, and I think that you're probably right that we still have, that is the sort of Lutheran heritage that exists still, that sort of puts all sexual practices in a shameful or maybe sinful corner, and maybe gay sex even more so, because
and I think it's interesting. Since we're talking about PrEP, I remember talking to people who are positive. Like right now, with the medications available, if you're positive, HIV positive, then as long as you're on medication, it's really impossible to transmit the virus. And I think it's interesting to hear about Norwegian guys who have been positive for a long period of time. Now, a lot of them say on their profiles that they're negative on PrEP, because there's less shame about that than there is about being positive still.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I have also an anecdote, but a reflection from just the other day. Speaking of this shame of HIV, I read in the newspaper that a colleague of mine that I know for many years in the art world, I'm not going to say who, is saying in the newspaper that he has been living with HIV for many years, but he's on medication and so on. And it occurred to me, I didn't know this. How strange that you would not know that someone that you, a colleague, someone in your environment in the art world has this and had it for many years, and it's just nobody ever said anything, or it's not, he never mentioned, nobody mentioned. And I felt that, well, in a way he was coming out in the newspaper. But it also points out, maybe, I hope I'm not exaggerating or whatever, but it felt to me that, well, maybe the art world also is quite conservative in a sense that there is we like to believe that there's a bigger openness perhaps about things in our world, but maybe not, and maybe it is difficult. Maybe also people in the art world would be afraid of saying these things because you're thinking that you might not get the job you want, you might not be looked upon the same way, or things like that. To just finish that off, and I'm thinking also like when we're doing an exhibition like this with work like this, it obviously also me as a gallerist also start to reflect, why don't I do this more often, like this sort of exhibitions? Why is it not so easy to somehow to make exhibitions that are dealing with subjects that are very strictly gay, not trying to be more or anything else. And then obviously at the same time, looking at it on the other backdrop, that here in Norway especially we have this love of doing jubilees for everything, like Women's Rights Jubilee, Breast Cancer Jubilee, whatever Jubilee, it's like declare that the 1 year is this and that. Next year is the shave, I'm not even sure how to... Sort of queer jubilee, where all cultural institutions are supposed to do something to celebrate this. Like, pack it into that year. And I was thinking about that. So we're doing this before, but then I was thinking, well, why should one thing exclude the other, or why is it like we have to do the jubilee, and then we're done with it? Which is, I think, how many cultural institutions work, where you do it that year, and then we have 10 more years of not doing any gay art or any whatever, So is that something that you reflected on also?
Absolutely. I mean, that was part of since this was my bachelor project, then I had to think about what were my references, and what I'm thinking out. I thought a lot about it within the context of the tiny niche world that is contemporary jewelry, and about how the openly gay contemporary jewelers that I saw that were being celebrated, they would do things that were slightly gay, I don't know, Polavendra? I'm losing all names, but Aaron Decker and Jonathan Hems and a lot of other guys were doing these really pretty stylish, polished things that were like, if you looked at them the right way, then it's very gay, like Hamsen Tai. Do you know him? Anyway, and because they're, in the end you have to sell it. So, and if you are only going for a very gay, if you're doing very explicitly gay things, I know this project it is basically only for gay men. There are very few other people that are going to buy it because it is kind of limiting.
But I think that sometimes you make, you think about it, and you think maybe the market would be women, but obviously your works are too gay to appeal to the women client, to the female client. I've seen that now already. I know it for a fact. So, and then maybe gays here are not brave enough to flaunt it like this, So
and I think it's interesting that you picked a brooch without text.
Yes, I'm very. I think I'm complicit, obviously, in this system of shame, because I'm like very bourgeois gay. So
Not
but
wearing a Moschino status.
no, but it obviously it's when you're picking up one of your works, and if you were actually considering to put them on you, you have to make a statement like, is this me? Do I dare? Is it too large? Is it too heavy? So in a way, your works are very demanding as jewelry.
Yeah.
Of the bearer. I mean, a lot of art jewelry is demanding because if you think of some famous jeweler artists like Liv Blåbær here in Norway, who's a legend. She's been doing jewelry for like 50 years probably. Her jewelry is so chunky and enormous and bizarre in a way that only the most confident and richest women can wear it. So this combination of enormous personality and confidence and money is very rare, but it exists in New York. I've been to parties where all the women have it. So your work maybe is also in a way that is. I'm thinking that somewhere there's like a party where everyone could wear it, but maybe not in Oslo.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But I knew that going in. I realized that, but I decided one thing, I'm selling them pretty cheaply, so I'm thinking this is for people with about the same amount of money I have, or less, and so I wanted people that want to wear them. So like making those gigantic, extremely expensive ones that just didn't appeal to me, and like I could not do something that didn't appeal to me. So this appealed to me, making something garish, rough, something that stains and is too gay. Yeah,
right.
That appealed to me.
So moving on, maybe you could tell us a little bit what you're doing now and where you're heading with your work. Are you going to continue doing this? Are you doing something else?
I am doing an exhibition here just around the corner at the Fetish Club, Oslo next month, the 16th of September. And there I'm displaying all of the brooches that I have. There are two that have left my hands, and as well as a few sculptural pieces, including the rest of my final project, which are these kettlebell sculptures that have similar bodies integrated into them, and as well as another sculpture that has only been shown at Vinterud, and as well as one performance piece, and I'll be showing some older performance pieces on video as well. So that is the next thing. Basically, otherwise I'm working. I'm an orthotic technician at the moment. I make things to help people walk.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's. I want to finish this one big project of the exhibition, but otherwise don't know how actively I'm going to pursue or this project at the moment. Yeah, but it'll be a little bit on the back burner.
And do you think that you're going to be set here in Oslo?
Oh yeah.
So now you're completely...
I love Oslo. Oslo is big enough for me. It's unbelievably not. It's the biggest city I've lived in, and I think it's exciting. A lot of people don't think Oslo is exciting, but I think it's exciting. And I have no intentions of moving anytime soon.
I think maybe with those words we are about to wrap up, but there might be some questions perhaps from someone in the audience. I think I would like to encourage you to ask a question. There are obviously lots of things to say about Helg's work. Is there anyone? you know it all already. Or is it a shame you don't want to ask?
Nobody here should.
Never mind. But as Helgi said, he's going to have an exhibition soon, very close to here at SNM. So we also look forward to seeing that. This exhibition will continue until we're extending it actually to the 17th. It was the 12th that was the last day, but we wanted to extend it another week because of the Oslo Art Weekend. So we're doing a finissage on the 17th, and hopefully we will be able to meet with a drink or things like that by then, but we're not sure how restrictions are. I want to thank the audience who's here physically for coming to RAM Gallery. I want to thank also the audience that will look at this footage on video, and thank you, Helgi, for participating in this talk.
Thank you for inviting me.
And also for participating in the exhibition. Thank you. All right. Please, you can clap.